Okay, I get it now. So The Crow Wicked Prayer tells the story of a man who is murdered alongside his girlfriend and rises from the dead to avenge their deaths. Does it sound familiar? Because it fucking should. Welcome back to the Crow Review Series, everybody, and we are finally at the culmination, the fourth and final Crow film, and possibly the fourth and final Crow film ever, time will tell, The Crow Wicked Prayer. Now, I have heard for years that this movie was abysmal, that it was an abomination, that it was no question the worst that this franchise had to offer and probably ever will have to offer. So needless to say, I walked into this with extremely low expectations, and this was a first-time watch for me, so I really didn't know what to expect. Is this just boring? Is this ridiculous? Is it so bad that it's good? I had no idea what type of film I was in for. And I gotta be honest with you, I will not question one bit anybody that tells me that this is an abysmal film or this is the worst thing they've ever seen or especially the worst thing they've ever seen from this franchise. But I gotta be honest, there was a certain element to this movie that just barely crossed over the line of being so bad that it's enjoyable. You know, there's very few movies that can walk that line and be successful to where it's just an unbelievable train wreck to the point where you actually have a good time marveling at how shitty this thing is. The Crow Wicked Prayer actually was that movie for me. Which is gonna be my first positive for The Crow Wicked Prayer, is that it's so abysmal that it was just hilarious to watch. I mean, every single aspect of this movie, top to bottom, front to back, left to right, is mistake after mistake after mistake, from just the inception of the idea all the way down to the execution. And this is absolutely one of those movies where you can tip a couple of beers back with some friends and just have a good time laughing at how horrible this is. This is almost the Room level of parody of the Crow franchise. There's no way in hell you can convince me that the people making this thought they were doing a good job or thought they were actually making a serious movie here, because it's just right on the cusp of self-aware that they had to have known. They had to have known how abysmal this was going to be. I mean, you cast Eddie Furlong as the Crow, for Christ's sake. That's the most random casting I've ever heard of in my life. They had to know. So on an objective level, you have no argument from me that this is by far the worst that this franchise has to offer and is an absolutely atrocious production. But I'd be lying to you if I did not say that I was at least entertained by this one a little more than one or two of the sequels. And one other positive I do have to give is I did appreciate the different setting here. Like I said, with the Crow City of Angels, and even to a certain degree with Salvation, we're kind of going for that inner city, dark, rainy, smoggy, foggy atmosphere. And this one takes a hard left turn and takes the story and puts it into a desert reservation. So just a very different color palette going on, a lot more oranges and tans and a lot different vibe to the movie. It almost has like a Western feel to it just because of the setting alone. So if nothing else, I can give them a little bit of credit that if you're going to do the same story again, they at least tried to put a little bit of a different flavor into it. Now, as far as the negatives, the long Walgreens receipt level list of negatives. This movie, by far, has the weirdest fucking cast ever. Let's just run down a few of the familiar faces you're going to come across in The Crow Wicked Prayer, shall we? You've got John Connor, you've got Angel, you have Dennis Hopper, you've got Danny Trejo, you've got Tank from The Matrix, you've got Chosen from The Karate Kid Part 2, and you have Damon John. One of the Shark Tank members is a fucking hearse driver in this movie. Oh, and last but absolutely not least, you have pre-plastic surgery meltdown Tara Reid. All throughout this movie, I just kept laughing out loud to the point where my wife thought that I was fucking stoned or something. Where I'm watching it and I'm just like, how the fuck did they get Dennis Hopper to be in this? How did they get Danny Trejo to be in this? Oh my God, is that Damon John? That is not Damon John. That is not a shark. Just the most random assortment of people ever. And unfortunately, that stands out so much because the performance and the dedication that these people give to the material that they are given ranges from two opposite extremes. You either have somebody that is so over the top and hyperactive to the point where they are just chewing the scenery to pieces, or you have the other half of the cast that just feels bored and uninterested, almost like they lost a card game and were forced to be in this movie. And leading the pack at both of those extremes is your antagonist and your protagonist. So you have Eddie Furlong here, and I will say clearly, I do have a special place in my heart for Edward Furlong. I absolutely adore Terminator 2. It's my second favorite movie of all time. It's so important to me, and I love him in the role of John Connor. He will always be John Connor to me. I also absolutely adore Detroit Rock City, one of my favorite comedies of all time. And he's one of those guys that I honestly have been waiting to have some kind of a resurgence in Hollywood. He's had his own share of problems in his private life, and it certainly has kind of colored how the public sees him as a person, especially inside of a movie. He is one of those guys that I root for to eventually have like a Robert Downey Jr. thing where he comes back clean and actually gets some good roles again, because the dude does have a good acting ability when he displays it. Unfortunately, in this movie, you get two halves. You get the first act of this film where he is a human, where he is this guy who's down and out, who's ostracized from this society, and he's, convicted of this crime that he's on parole for, and they never really get too deep into what exactly happened. You kind of get an explanation in one little flash that kind of gives you the idea that he was probably under good intentions, if not innocent, for this crime. But nonetheless, in the first act, when you're introduced to this character, when you see how everybody treats him, when you see his relationship with his girlfriend, all the way up to the point that he is killed, I think he's actually pretty damn good. For what I was expecting the level of acting to be, he was actually doing it. He was trying. There was scenes where he had to act emotional, where he uncovers the body of his fiance after he has been, brought back to life, where he gives some really good emotion. And I was like, hey, Edward Furlong's actually giving it his all here. Then as soon as he puts on the Crow makeup, just like the laziness of putting it on with a Sharpie pen, for Christ's sake, it feels like his fucks to give just left the building, because he is one of the most dull, emotionless, lifeless, and overall boring portrayals of the Crow in this entire franchise.
Are you an angel? Are you another devil?
Like, there's nothing that's like a physical threat about him. There's no kind of an attitude that he's given in roles before, like John Connor, that comes out. He just looks bored. He looks like he could not care less. It's almost like they did like a 72-hour shoot or something, and the entire last day was all of his Crow scenes to where he just wanted to go to sleep. I don't know what the hell happened, what switch went off, but two very different performances, and unfortunately, most of the movie is the worst part. Then you have David Boreanaz, and I probably fucked up his name. No need to correct me down below. I know I messed it up. So I'm just gonna call him Angel. Angel is the only person in this entire movie that knows exactly what movie he is in. He is so over the top and ridiculous and zany and just chewing the scenery to pieces, especially in the third act when he actually embodies Lucifer at some point. And unfortunately, because he's the only member of the cast, maybe aside from Dennis Hopper, that knows what type of movie that he's in, even though he's matching the level of quality that is surrounding him, he stands out like a sore thumb as seeming ridiculous, because everybody else is so monotone and subdued and bored and uninterested that he just seems like he took a gigantic line of speed and just went in front of the camera and just fucking went nuts.
You see, the world's like an angry dog on a choke chain, It lunges, snaps, and pulls. But the chain around its neck just gets tighter and tighter!
It also goes without saying, but I must say it, that this movie gets absolutely zero credit in the story department, because it's wash, rinse, repeat of the exact same setup as every single one of these movies. Somebody gets killed along with a loved one, they come back to life and enact vengeance until the end of the movie. There is nothing, absolutely nothing in this movie that tries to be unique or different or subdue your expectations or subvert your expectations in any way, to where it just feels like a low-rent, cheap, low-budgeted remake of the original film. And once again, just like I said with City of Angels, I will never have a reason to watch any of the movies that do that, because I will just watch the original. Even the villains, which is really the only way that these sequels have any chance of standing out amongst each other, are just dull. It starts off interesting enough where you get this kind of comic book style description of all the characters, and they all have a name based off the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, pestilence and war and famine. and they go nowhere with it. As soon as I saw that Chosen was here, as well as the guy from The Matrix, I was like, well, at least Chosen should be a good bad guy, because he was a great bad guy. Oh no, he could give a fuck if he's in this movie or not. So even on that end, you don't really get any satisfaction there. There's no over-the-top villain or character that just is fun to watch. You have three people that seem bored, and then you have Angel that is just larger than life to the point where he's like a fucking cartoon compared to everybody else. Everybody should have caught up with him. Maybe it would have been a little bit more memorable. There's also no action or no excitement in this whatsoever once they become the Crow. Once Edward Furlong is on his revenge path, there's no hand-to-hand fighting or shootouts or anything really in this movie that's exciting. I mean, even the action scenes, if you can even call that an action scene that we get here and there, where he is attacking or at least confronting these different members of this apocalypse cult, it's so obviously not Edward Furlong. I mean, he'll be standing on a table and then he'll do like this little crow swan dive, or he'll shoot across the room or do a backflip, and it's like, dude, that's not even the same body type. Like, you're not selling me on this at all. There's just no physicality whatsoever in this movie. So why are we here? And last but not least, the production value on this thing is abysmal. I mean, this is low budget, this is straight to video, but I've seen much better done with much less. I mean, they just don't do anything here. The sets look cheap, the setting is repetitive over and over and over again. There's no kind of diversity in the look or the visuals of what's going on in the film. The action sequences are non-existent, so there's not even anything cool, like explosion-wise, that stands out. It looks like they had enough money for one thing to blow up, and it had to be right, and that was about all you're gonna get. There was even moments where it was embarrassing, to where I'm like, dude, what is going on here? Like, whenever you're in the final climax and Eddie Furlong flips over Angel and he is impaled by this rock in the desert, watch the scene again. If you have the heart to ever go back and watch any frame of this movie again, watch this scene again, and Angel is sitting there with fake prosthetic rocks sticking out of his chest, and the rocks are moving with him as he is breathing and talking. I watched it and I'm like, dude, you didn't even give enough of a fuck to film it from a different angle or to tell him to stop breathing so goddamn hard. Everybody who worked on the effects of this movie just saw that and said, fuck it, good enough. Nobody's gonna care by this point. So overall, guys, yes, absolutely abysmal movie. Not even close to the level of quality of the original. Not even close to the level of quality in the two sequels that we get, which aren't even really anything to call home about. So you have a movie like this that almost every single franchise that I've ever reviewed has, and that's the one movie that you either absolutely despise or it's so horrible that you get some enjoyment out of it. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm still kind of torn on where I land with this. There was parts of it that were so horrible that I was entertained, and there was others that I was just embarrassed for everybody involved. But nonetheless, pretty good chance if you're watching this movie is not for you. So if you're a fan of The Crow, just rewatch the original again, or maybe give something like The Crow Salvation a shot for a little bit of a different flavor. But this movie is an exercise in horrible, horrible filmmaking. So if you want to get some beers in you and laugh at how bad it can be, by all means, check it out. If you actually want to enjoy your movie, steer clear and skip it. So what do you guys think of The Crow Wicked Prayer? Is this one of your least favorite movies of all time? Is this something that you can throw on and have a blast with how horrible it is? Do you think we're ever going to get another Crow movie, or did Wicked Prayer put the nail in the coffin for The Crow forever? Please let me know down below and we will talk about it. Please like and share this video to get some new eyes on this channel, and if you are finding me for the first time, I've already reviewed the other 3 movies in this franchise, and on Devil's Night this Saturday, we're going to be doing a ranking of the Crow franchise. So please hit that subscribe button so you do not miss any of that. Thank you guys for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.